Hey everyone, this is Brian. I'm just popping in before the actual show. This is the first episode we've released since the Supreme Court ruling on the Dobbs case, which deprived people across this country of the federal right to an abortion to decide what to do with their own bodies. I don't know how much it comes across. I think we were sort of in full-on distraction mode by the time we recorded. And also we are three cis dudes on this episode. But we want to take an opportunity to call out a few options for direct action that you can do right now specifically. And I'm sure so many of you have heard this many times. But please, please, please donate to an abortion fund if you can. Planned Parenthood is a great organization. They do great work. NARAL, same thing. They do not need your money. Abortion funds do. Especially if you live in a state like Colorado, say, that is surrounded by states where abortion is now mostly or entirely illegal. Basically, abortion funds help people who are pregnant get abortions. They help them with travel. They help them with medical expenses. And you can do that and can make an immediate impact in someone's life right now. There's also, if you've been on Instagram, you may have seen me share this. I personally am putting together a bake sale that will, where all the money will go to, well, you'll donate on your own and then send me a screenshot. And I'll send you some baked goods. Menu and more details are available on our Instagram, just revisionist_podcast. And, you know, we are a comedy podcast first and foremost. But, you know, we started this podcast because I especially am obsessed with history. I love it. And there is, I think, a tendency to see ourselves as separate from history. And I think this is one of those moments where it is abundantly clear that that's not true. Sorry, my computer is beeping in the background. I don't know what's going on. But right now, these are the moments in history where people in the future look back and talk about how we got here, yes, what happened, but also how people met that moment. And we have a choice in how we do that. There are many more of us than there are of them. Regardless of whether you feel personally you would ever get an abortion, if you have a uterus, regardless of whatever religious or cultural background you have that informs your personal beliefs, it's not right to make anyone else abide by your personal beliefs. And if you disagree with that, you are not fit to participate in a democracy. And it's simple as that. So we're going to fight. And we have to. We have to fight for people to be able to control their bodies. We have to fight to be able to not get shot when we're out wandering around in public. We have to fight for the right for a democracy where everyone can vote, and trust that their vote will not be discounted because of the color of their skin or the zip code in which they live. We have to fight for a world with a livable climate. And it's a lot. It's a lot. But we have to fight. because what else are we going to do? Yeah, I'm going to include links to my personal favorite abortion fund, which is Cobalt here in Colorado. That is also lobbying to include the right to an abortion in the state constitution, which will make it harder to overturn. Also going to include the national network. Also, you can Google your area plus abortion fund and find somewhere close to you that is doing this work. And, I'm sorry, I don't mean to speak for Zach. I know we agree on this. And sorry, this is just a collection of my thoughts now, but we need to react today and tomorrow the same way we did on January 6th. Because that was the physical coup. That was the martial coup, in a way. But the coup has been going on for a long time. What do you call sort of this level of minority government other than that? What do you call, in Missouri, where voters at the polls said that they wanted to expand Medicaid, like, what was that, 4 years ago? And a Republican-controlled state legislature keeps trying to block that. What do you call a body of unelected, unaccountable justices using no solid legal reasoning that any scholar can penetrate to whatever they're trying to do, shore up their base, throw red meat to a certain group of people, make sure that primary voters turn out for their party? I believe wholeheartedly that most of them are just cynical and don't believe in much of anything. And the fact that they are willing to deprive people of their bodily autonomy is terrifying and infuriating. And yeah, we have to fight this. And we're going to fight this. I don't know how that fight will go. I don't know when it will end. I believe that we will win eventually. And I hope it's soon. I hope my daughter can benefit from a world in which we've won. Yeah. Anyway, this is a comedy show? I said that, right? I said that up top. So this is a very silly episode. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it brings you a little bit of relief right now. And I hope that whatever you're doing it with the goal of bringing some positivity into the world, helping people who need it, and fighting for the people who are being oppressed. All right. Yeah. Thank you.
July 9th, 1850, U.S. President Zachary Taylor dies after eating raw fruit and iced milk, which is why today we only eat deep fried fruit and piping hot milk.
Welcome to The Revisionists. I'm Brian Flynn.
I am Zach Powers.
Hi, I'm Steve Vanderbilt. Can I say something real quick?
Sure. I mean, you're already underway. Go for it.
It's also National Dimples Day. Happy National Dimples Day.
Great. I don't really have any.
What did you get me for it?
I got you some dimples.
Oh, thank you.
It's a holiday that we celebrate here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know why dimple. When's the day for non-dimpled people, huh?
Well, they get 364 days.
364 fucking days, man. That is not. I don't want to lean into. I don't want anyone to think I think people with dimples are in any way oppressed.
That's dimpleless. Yeah.
Oh man. Welcome, Steve Vanderploeg, back to the show. Also.
Oh
Hey,
yes,
good to be back.
yeah,
It's been so long.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Are you laying
Uh,
on the floor or are you up against the
I
wall?
I had to move because there's going to be like noises in the other room
Oh,
soon.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, Steve lost a lot of the NFT market. He's
right,
he's sleeping on the floor.
that's
Hard
right.
times in the
I
Vanderpoot.
invested in a different colored Shiba Inu, and everybody's pissed at me. So
That is maybe the best articulation of the NFT market I've heard yet. Um, Listeners,
Well,
sorry,
yeah, we're
Zach, go ahead.
back. We're continuing, closing out pretty quick our run on con artists. And we did save the best for this episode, perhaps. But before we do that, we have the results from our Curtis Howe Springer, the founder of Zizix episode. And ultimately the actual history of that crazy guy who created a weird little foundation, a little spa in the desert that would cure all that ails you. That won out in the end.
But not actually cure all that ails you because it's not, there's
it was
no
a scam.
medicine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
might have been by the fact that this is our con artists run. You might have determined that it was not true. Yeah, but actual history won on that one. But today, whoo boy, we're talking about the silver tuna con artists, the real top tier.
still has a strong stranglehold too.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. One L. Ron Hubbard, Lafayette Ron Hubbard is our topic today.
Yes, that is correct. Listeners, I will say that we had some technical kerfuffles getting the episode set up. We recently moved to a new house, and what I thought would be a good studio space has shitty Wi-Fi. And now my notes are on my phone and half deleted. So we're gonna just do the best we can.
That's all right. I know a lot about L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah, I know a little bit about the man as well. I know Steve has a heart out, so I don't know if he'll be here for the whole episode, but we'll see what we can do.
Oh yeah, we'll see when that comes up. We'll deal with that. Listeners, also, what we typically do each episode, did we give the introduction for what we do on the show?
Oh yeah, I didn't do that. Yeah, this is a comedy history podcast. Every episode we have a guest on. One of us tells the true history of a person or event, and then somebody else tells a alternate history that can be literally whatever they choose. It can be as batshit and crazy as they like. And then at the end, we vote on what becomes the true history of the world going forward.
Yes, awesome. We are a little discombobulated because the world is fucked right now. Specifically America, which is not the whole world. I'll give you that. But let's dive into a simpler, more wholesome time by talking about L. Ron Hubbard. Lafayette Ron Hubbard was born in 1911 to a father who was in the U.S. Navy, and his mother worked for the government. And because his dad did work for the Navy, they moved around a lot. And this will tell you the kind of kid Hubbard was. He was the kid who was super into Boy Scouts, which I think we all knew one or two of those, I'm sure. He made, yeah, he's a fucking narc.
Yeah.
He made Eagle Scout 2 weeks after his 13th birthday, which is just like narcs don't even hang out with that kid. Like,
yeah,
that's like so young for an Eagle Scout too.
Yeah, I think it was easier in those days to make Eagle Scout than it is than it was later.
Yeah,
it's basically like it's student debt, basically. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
the same thing. Um, so Hubbard, at one point, his father was posted to Guam, and Hubbard got to travel around to China and Japan, and he kept diaries from this period, which contained numerous racial slurs and described the criticized the Chinese and Japanese people for being poor.
Yeah, he said that he saw the Great Wall of China, and his main takeaway was there should be a roller coaster on
Yeah.
He basically was kicked out of high school for having bad grades, which would be a sort of thing that was a running theme in his life. Though he did write a little bit for the school paper. Then enrolled at then he took an entrance examination for the Naval Academy and failed it. Then he enrolled in a special prep school in Virginia to get ready to retake the test. And then he started complaining about eye strain when he was in school, and he was diagnosed with nearsightedness, which disqualified him from the Naval Academy. Later, as an adult, he would write in one of his diaries, quote, "Your eyes are getting progressively better. They became bad when you used them as an excuse to escape the Naval Academy." Which is just not, the timeline of that does not really work. But anyway, he then went to a place called the Woodward School for Boys, which is a school where they teach you how to be a boy.
It's hard to learn,
Yeah,
especially in Boy Scouts. They don't teach you how to be a boy.
no, they just teach you how to scout for boys.
Yeah.
You got to look for Boy Scat, Boy Prince, Boy Bait, which is, I assume, what, nacho cheese Doritos.
Well, there is a joke to be made about the not so savory history of Boy Scout troop leaders, but I will hold off.
Anyway, Hubbard eventually began studying civil engineering at George Washington University because his dad wanted him to. And he was not good at school. He failed a bunch of courses, including atomic physics. This despite the fact that he would later on tell people he was a nuclear scientist.
Yeah, some of this is dubious. He said he failed atomic physics. It was also 1930, so I'm not entirely sure that class existed.
I mean, they definitely knew about atoms then.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know how long the class was, if it was a 6-week 1-credit course, like we had a wine tasting class at Metro. So I think it may have been the same level of rigor there. During what would be his final semester, he organized a trip to the Caribbean, just a cruise, because he wanted to film pirate strongholds and also, quote, collect whatever one collects for exhibits in museums, which is great. I love that. That's one of my favorite quotes from this sick man.
Yeah, with Indiana Jones, it belongs in a museum. With L. Ron Hubbard, it belongs in a museum.
So the trip ran into a lot of trouble. Again, this will be a recurring theme. The owners of the boat demanded he return to Baltimore. He did, and he just stopped showing up for university classes. His father volunteered him for a Red Cross relief effort in Puerto Rico. But while he was on the way there, he just decided to peace out, and he went with a stranger to look for gold.
Just look for conquistador gold.
Yeah.
Abandoned the Red Cross and was like, I guess we'll go try to find gold.
there's so many things in his. One of the things I should have said this up top as a big caveat. When you Google L. Ron Hubbard, like looking for biographical notes, other than like his Wikipedia page and like one or two other things, everything on the front page of Google is a domain that's owned by the Church of Scientology. So you have to kind of dig to get anything that is not written by the Church of Scientology.
There are books about him. There's a book
Yeah.
called The Barefaced Messiah that's like a non-Scientology
Yes.
account of his life.
I've read Going Clear by Lawrence Wright also, which is very good, but that is less of a biography of him and more about Scientology as a whole.
Yeah. I watched that documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Hubbard returned to the Washington, D.C. area in February 1933, where he met and fell in love with a fellow glider piloting enthusiast named, and this seems real, Polly Grubb. So he and Polly Grubb got married like 2 months later in April. They had a couple children, one of whom was Lafayette Ronald Hubbard Jr., who they called Nibs. The couple,
rap name.
Yes. They were pretty much short of money. Hubbard had started writing in high school, and around this time he started selling stories to like pulp magazines. A lot of them were science fiction, fantasy, but he also did westerns, adventure stories, a bunch of different genres. He wrote under pen names like Rene Lafayette, Kurt von Rochen, Joe Blitz, Legionnaire 148, and Winchester Remington Colt.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, that one's my favorite.
Just 3 guns.
Pulling back the kimono a little bit, as someone who does write science fiction fantasy and has submitted to journals, this was wild to me because the going rate at the time was like 1 cent a word. And so for like his first 6 pieces or whatever, or like I did the math on this, but it was on my other file, for like a 5,000 word story, he would have gotten $500, which is $50, excuse me. But adjusted for inflation, that would have been like $1,200 today.
Whoa.
Whereas the going rate for a short story in like the best science fiction magazines today is 10 cents a word. And so a 50,000 word story that you submitted today would only be worth $500 as opposed to like the $1,200 he got paid then. So all the sources were like, oh, he wasn't making a lot of money, but part of me is like, he's making a fuckload of money for a sci-fi writer.
Yeah.
Anyway, they eventually moved to Washington. This is where my note. He wrote his first full-length novel in 1937 called Buckskin Brigades, which was sort of based on the fictional life story he wrote for himself, that he was adopted by the Blackfoot Nation, which was fucking wild. And this is where he begins his relationship with his longtime editor, John Campbell. He also wrote the script for a movie based on another one of his novels, The Secret of Treasure Island. And he starts spending time.
The Muppet movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Muppet movie by L. Ron Hubbard.
Yep. He wrote Muppet Treasure Island starring Tim Curry. You didn't know that?
And Muppets Going Clear. and Kermit operating Phaeton. So the big, according to him, again, that's the big caveat with anything from his biography. The big turning point in his life was in April 1938. He undergoes like a dental procedure, and he has a bad reaction to one of the drugs used. And according to him, he has a near-death experience that inspires him to compose a manuscript, which will never be published, called Excalibur, or The One Command. A friend of his who read it later recalled that it discussed the one command humanity faced, which was to survive. It also talked about the psychology of a lynch mob. There's not a lot of detail on it because it never got fucking published.
There are he had some claims about the book that we can go into a little later.
Oh yes. Oh, I'm about to dive into those. He told friends that he thought the book would be somewhat more important and have a greater impact upon people than the Bible. So he sent telegrams out to different publishers telling them to meet him at Penn Station in New York, where he would discuss it with them and just give it to whoever gave him the best offer. And no one, I don't know if anyone showed up or no one bought it. But I love picturing him just waiting around at the train station and no one showing up. He would later tell people that whoever read Excalibur either went insane or committed suicide. And he said that the last time he had shown it to a publisher in New York, he walked into their office to find out what the reaction was. The publisher called for the reader. The reader came in with the manuscript, threw it on the table, and threw himself out the skyscraper window. And I think he's interpreting that as a positive review, which I wouldn't necessarily.
He said if you read the book, it would eliminate all fear in your life. He told his longtime publisher, Campbell, like, reading it would eliminate all fear and anxiety from your life. And his publisher, who was like his friend and everything, was like, I never understood how that would cause you to commit suicide.
He did. The failure of the book, at least in the contemporary to the story, put him into a deep depression. He did tell his wife, again, Polly Grubb, in a letter, quote, I have high hopes of smashing my name into history so violently that it will take a legendary form, even if all books are destroyed. That goal is the real goal, so far as I'm concerned, which is nuts.
That's pretty fucking nuts, for sure.
That is not, even like Stephen King at his most coked out, never said anything remotely batshit as that.
And you know what? He kind of did it.
Yeah, I mean, credit where credit is due. Side note, like, the manuscript for Excalibur is now like, it's sort of like a holofoil Charizard to Scientologists. In the early 50s, the church published an edition of Excalibur with like a gold binding, and it came like locked like a diary for $1,500, the equivalent of about $1,700 or $17,000 today. And it said also that it, quote, contains data not to be released during Mr. Hubbard's stay on Earth.
Whoa.
Yeah. He has a fucked up trip to Alaska. He applies again in 1941 to join the Navy. But this time he has a friend who's a state representative for Washington State who just lets him like use his letterhead and write his own like letter of recommendation to the Navy, where Hubbard writes about himself, quote, He's one of the most brilliant men I've ever known. And so he gets into the Navy in July 1941, which is a hell of a time to get into the Navy. So he's sent for training as an intelligence officer. He's posted to the Philippines, posted to Australia, waiting to be sent to the Philippines. But while he's in Australia, he's sent back to the US with a note almost that says, this officer is not satisfactory for independent duty assignment. He is garrulous and tries to give impressions of his importance. He also seems to think he has unusual ability in most times. These characteristics indicate that he will require close supervision for satisfactory performance of any intelligence duty. He's posted in Massachusetts, where he gets basically the same notes, like where he's about to take over a gunship. He's like, not suited for independent command. Do not let this person be in charge of anything.
But he does tell them that he has experience on a destroyer, which he doesn't.
He doesn't.
And they give him some degree of command over his ship.
Yes, he takes over a submarine chaser, which is posted to Portland, Oregon in 1943. They take their first cruise to San Diego, and 5 hours into the trip, Hubbard becomes convinced that he's detected a Japanese submarine. And so they spend almost the next 3 full days trying to engage this submarine,
dropping depth charges and things.
Until they finally receive orders to return back to Oregon, where the commander, his commander reports, an analysis of all reports convinces me there was no submarine in the area, and that Hubbard had mistaken, quote, a known magnetic deposit for an enemy sub. Which,
at least there was something there.
Honestly, I could have done the same thing. I feel like if I was on a boat called a submarine chaser and I had that little hat, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to chase this fucking submarine.
But would you drop hundreds of depth charges over several days?
Hundreds, baby. No.
Get down there.
Kill them fish. No, don't do that. The following month, still in charge of the same ship, he unknowingly sailed it into Mexican waters and started doing shooting practice off the Coronado Islands, because he thought they were uninhabited. They were not. And he thought they belonged to the United States. They did not. And so the Mexican government was like, hey, could you not? And he was stripped of command. A report said he was unsuitable for independent duties again, and recommended that he be assigned to duty on a large vessel where he can be properly supervised. So after he's reassigned, he starts reporting sick a lot, saying he has ulcers, he has malaria, he has back pain, which malaria is your closer with that. You don't go from malaria to back pain.
That's what I took when I wanted a green card for my weed. I said, hey, I've got malaria. And they're like, that. No. I got back pain. They're like, here you go. Some weed. Take care of that.
Yeah. Just jump straight to Ebola for the medical marijuana card, and it's like, okay, 2 steps down.
Excuse me, doctor, I'm dead. I need medical marijuana. He was admitted to the Navy hospital for 3 months. Years later, again, similar to the eyesight thing, he wrote to himself, your stomach trouble you used as an excuse to keep the Navy from punishing you. You are free of the Navy. Which is a fucking just weird way to phrase that from a writer's perspective. He reported on another ship that he detected an attempt at sabotage, where he found basically a Molotov cocktail in storage. I couldn't find anything to follow this up to say whether they determined this was legitimate or what.
I'm gonna go with no.
I'm gonna go with no, but like it feels like I would have seen something. So he then was going to school and in the Naval Reserve at this time. He still complained of headaches, rheumatism, conjunctivitis, side pain, stomach aches, pains in his shoulders, arthritis, hemorrhoids. In October 1945, Naval Board found that Hubbard was, quote, considered physically qualified to perform duty ashore, preferably within the continental United States. So he was transferred to inactive duty in February 1946, but he stayed officially in the Navy until his book Dianetics was published in October 1950. I'm going to preface this by saying I've been wanting to do an episode on this next gentleman we're about to introduce for a while, probably next Halloween. But he settles in Pasadena, which is not where his wife and children are living. They didn't officially get divorced yet, which is going to come up later. But at this point, Hubbard moves into the Pasadena mansion of a man named Jack Parsons, who is a rocket scientist and also super into the occult. He's a follower of Aleister Crowley. He is the leader of a lodge of Crowley's magical order, the Ordo Templi Orientis. And so he does both rocket experiments and like occult, like summoning experiments in his house. So Hubbard, made friends with Parsons and then began also a sexual relationship with Parsons' 21-year-old girlfriend. Hubbard at this point was in his mid-30s. Sarah Betty Northrup. I don't know why Betty is a nickname for Sarah. Parsons was super into like swinging and free love. There are just so many quotes. Writing to Aleister Crowley about Hubbard, Parsons says, quote, although he has no formal training in magic, he has an extraordinary amount of experience and understanding in the field. From some of his experiences, I deduce that he is in direct touch with some higher intelligence, possibly his guardian angel. He describes his angel as a beautiful winged woman with red hair, whom he calls the Empress, and who has guided him through his life and saved him many times. So,
pretty normal.
Parsons and Hubbard begin collaborating on a summoning ritual called the Babylon Working, which is a sex magic ritual intended to summon an incarnation of Babylon, the supreme Thelemite goddess. So over several nights, 1946, they attempted to summon this elemental, this goddess. Where basically the ritual was Jack Parsons would masturbate into a circle, and Hubbard would scan the astral plane for signs and visions. Well, he did that.
Well, where I have quite like this is the same.
Oh,
room?
You have questions?
Yeah, is this different rooms?
No, this is the same room, baby.
Same room, yeah.
Okay, I guess that makes more sense.
I mean, my question is how do you determine who gets masturbation duty? Who gets scanny duty and who gets masturbation duty? Like, how do you split that? Is it a coin flip? Is somebody more primed?
I feel like Parsons is like, no, I don't have the touch. I can't search as well as you can.
You're more in tune with the astral plane. I'm more in tune with my dick.
I'm just gonna stay here and jerk it. That wasn't like part of the planned ritual. It just became the ritual.
Yeah, no, they caught Parsons masturbating. He was like, no, I'm trying to summon Babylon. And every time he would go to the bathroom by himself, he'd be like, "Gotta go summon Babylon." Every time you come back from summoning Babylon, you can't look anyone in the eyes. It's like, don't talk about it. Don't talk about it.
I saw Babylon. My eyes hurt. That's why L. Ron Hubbard couldn't see very well. That's why he had bad vision.
Yeah, if you masturbate to a sex magic ritual to summon Babylon too often, you'll go blind. But then you can just do it till you need glasses. Anyway, so Parsons and Hubbard believed that the elemental arrived a few days later in the form of a woman named Marjorie Cameron, who agreed to participate in the sex magic rituals. We will get into that in the Jack Parsons episode, though. So Parsons, Hubbard, and Sarah/Betty set up a formal business, which is, you'll find out, not a good idea with L. Ron Hubbard. And basically, L. Ron Hubbard steals Parsons' life savings, and he and Parsons' girlfriend, the plan was Hubbard and Sarah would buy yachts in Miami, sail them back to Pasadena, and sell them for a profit. And
one thing about L. Ron is he just loves boats so much. He's such a boat guy.
Yeah.
No, he's a boat goat for sure.
Yeah.
He's just horny for boats. And this is just a scam. Parsons later said that he was basically shattered by Hubbard's actions. So Hubbard in 1946 married Sarah/Betty. Well, he was still married to Polly Grubb. It wasn't until a year later that Polly learned that he remarried. And so he was finally like, "Fine, you caught me. I'll give you a divorce and won't be doing a bigamy." So it was around this time that we start seeing the first real Scientology type writing from Hubbard. He wrote a document called Affirmations, where they're just a series of statements about his life, his sex life, his psychological life, that were almost a form of self-hypnosis. So the quotes from earlier about the eye trouble and the stomach trouble were from the Affirmations, but also he wrote, "Your foot was an alibi. The injury is no longer needed. Your hip is a pose. You have a sound hip. It never hurts. Your shoulder never hurts. Masturbation does not injure or make insane. Your parents were in error. Everyone masturbates. You can tell all the romantic tales you wish, but you know which ones were lies. You have enough real experience to make anecdotes forever. Stick to your true adventures." So, among other things. At this point, Hubbard, I've been doing that so much getting ready for this episode. I've been calling him Philip Seymour Hoffman. He requests psychiatric help from the VA. And this was when the VA actually did that sort of thing. In writing his request, he said, "After trying and failing for 2 years to regain my equilibrium in civil life, I am utterly unable to approach anything like my own competence." He was then arrested for petty theft in San Luis Obispo, California, and ordered to pay a $25 fine, $282 in today's money, a lot of inflation. And this is about the point when Hubbard and Sarah moved to Georgia, and he starts working as he says a lay practitioner in a psychiatric clinic. I think just administrative assistant, not sure. And this is when he starts working on his book Dianetics. He says he has discovered the cause and the cure of nervous tension. He wrote to his friend Robert Heinlein about Heinlein. Heinlein wrote an earlier book called Coventry about basically a utopian government that can cure criminals of violent personality traits. Hubbard told Heinlein, "You didn't specify in your book what actual reformation took place in the society to make supermen. Got to thinking about it the other day. The system is Excalibur." Which, if that doesn't make sense to you, strap the fuck in, because the rest of this is going to make even less sense, probably.
I mean, there was an Excalibur reference.
Yes.
You know?
Hubbard, again, he wrote to a bunch of professional medical organizations to try to sell his research to them, and none of them were interested. So he hooked back up with his editor, John Campbell, Campbell had a long-standing fascination with psychokinetic powers, or psionics, and just fringe psychologies. And so they developed the therapy of Dianetics, not diagnostics. Diagnostics is a real thing. So they refined Hubbard's Dianetic techniques, I guess, and tested them on science fiction fans who were recruited by Campbell. The basic underlying principle of Dianetics, which would go on to form part of the basis of Scientology, was that people's brains record every experience in their lives. And so bad experiences are stored as engrams in a reactive mind that could be triggered later in life, causing emotional and physical problems. And you can cure these problems by a process he called auditing, which would be just regressing to past experiences. And in doing so, blah, 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 you can be so-called cleared of these experiences and achieve higher level function. He said that people who be clear would have a perfectly functioning mind with an improved IQ and photographic memory.
Yeah.
That people would be cured of poor eyesight and the common cold, which Hubbard thought were purely psychosomatic.
Has he not heard of COVID?
Oh my God. If Hubbard I have not looked up what Scientology has said about COVID, and I kind of am curious now.
I'm sure they can cure it.
Listeners, if you want to get those cookies on your computer for me, go ahead, because I don't want those ads.
Well, to be fair, I mean, Tom Cruise went off famously during Mission Impossible 7 about people not following COVID protocols, and dude is Scientologist as fuck. So
that is true.
Yeah, very true.
He announced Dianetics in Campbell's journal, Astounding Science Fiction. Campbell said in an editorial introduction, quote, "Its power is almost unbelievable. It proves the mind not only can, but does rule the body completely." They established the Hubbard Dianetic Research Foundation in New Jersey. Hubbard basically at this point, he's not even writing anymore. He's doing Dianetics full time, because guess what? You have to pay to attend the lectures and you have to pay to be audited. And so it gets super popular in the early 50s. The book was translated into French, German, Japanese, sold tens of thousands of copies. There were 500 Dianetics auditing groups in the US. The press and scientists didn't like it because it was not supported by evidence. And so, but some famous sci-fi writers were on board. Aldous Huxley received auditing. Theodore Sturgeon, A.E. Van Voigt. There were Van Voigt later recalled, there it is, that he spent days doing basically nothing else but opening envelopes to pull out $500 checks in the 1950s from people who wanted to take the course to learn how to audit. Hubbard was seen just by people like taking money off the top. Like one of the Dianetics Foundation's employees showed that the books had a monthly income of $90,000, but only 20,000 of it was accounted for. And like Hubbard would be seen like taking money literally from like, I don't know if they had a safe or just like a bag with a dollar sign on it, but he'd be taking money out of it. And he would travel around doing lectures and things like that. He was like super charismatic, which is like, I've not really seen footage of him speaking. I don't doubt it for him to be able to say these things with a straight face. He gives a demonstration at the Shrine Auditorium in LA where he brings someone up who he says has gone clear. Her name was Sonia Bianca. And he says she now has a perfect photographic memory due to going clear. But during the demonstration, she failed to remember a single physics formula, despite being a physics major. And Hubbard turned his back and she could not remember the color of his tie, which apparently like a large part of the audience got up and left at that point. A large part and not all, which is wild. This is when sort of doubts start creeping in about Dianetics. And so there were some, he didn't have the sort of central control that would later become like the feature of Scientology. Dianetics was much more like crowdsourced almost. And so people had these independent groups and ideas and they were fighting for control of it. And so he was in super debt. His marriage to Sarah collapsed. He had begun a different affair with his 20-year-old public relations assistant. And so he also, he denounced Sarah and Sarah's lover to the FBI as communists.
Well, this is important because she met another Dianetics guy.
Yes.
And the marriage started to fall through. And his reaction wasn't just to denounce them as communists to the FBI.
His reaction during the divorce and the ensuing custody battle was to kidnap Sarah and his 1-year-old daughter, Alexis. And he tried to find a doctor to declare Sarah insane, which
after kidnapping her and forcing her to come to the doctor.
It was the 50s, to be fair. So that seems almost plausible given the state of medicine in the 50s.
And he sent his little daughter to Cuba, where he just had a string of strangers that he hired to watch his daughter. People he didn't know at all. He was just like, you take care of her while I'm dealing with this.
He was pretty trustworthy to me, you know.
In the divorce suit, Sarah accused, and this is, I should say, a warning for violent physical abuse. She accused him of marrying her bigamously and subjecting her to sleep deprivation, kidnapping, which we discussed. He tried to convince her to kill herself, and physically assaulted and even strangled her. And so Sarah got custody of Alexis by agreeing to a settlement with Hubbard, where she signed a public statement that said, the things I've said about L. Ron Hubbard in courts and public prints have been grossly exaggerated or entirely false. I have not at any time believed otherwise than that L. Ron Hubbard is a fine and brilliant man. So you almost have to believe that her publicly talking about his abuse was more of an issue to him than custody of his daughter. So it was more important that he get her to sign the statement than anything else. So, but anyway, Dianetics is collapsing. So blah, blah, blah. He marries an 18-year-old staff member, Mary Sue Whip, and moves to Phoenix and establishes the Hubbard Association of Scientologists International. And we are just getting to Scientology, Jesus Christ. The Dianetics is part of Scientology, but Dianetics is sort of like the study of how these negative engrams, whatever, affect the brain. And Scientology is sort of about studying how like the brain and the spirit and stuff relate to, quote, itself, universes, and other life. So he publishes his, quote, discovery that man is most fundamentally a spiritual being called a thetan. He was also basically doing this to reassert editorial control over his creation. There was a story that the author Harlan Ellison told of seeing Hubbard at like a gathering of a club, complaining that he was not being paid enough as a writer, and that someone else told Hubbard that what he needed to do to get rich was to start a religion. And that quote is attributed to Hubbard like at multiple different stages. So who knows when it actually really happened. But basically his whole doctrine he came up with was that the person is a thetan, an immortal, omniscient, and potentially omnipotent entity, that thetans created the universe and forgot their godlike powers and became trapped in physical bodies. Basically, the goal of Scientology was to rehabilitate each person's thetan to restore its original capacities. He wrote a lot of his other books from this point on are basically like D&D supplementals, but for Scientology. He wrote a book called A History of Man, which he called a cold-blooded and factual account of your last 60 trillion years. And another book called Scientology 8-8008, where he says, quote, with this book, the ability to make one's body old or young at will, the ability to heal the ill without physical contact, the ability to cure the insane and the incapacitated is set forth for the physician, the layman, the mathematician, and the physicist. Scientology is basically like, it's organized. The comparison I've seen used is like a fast food chain where there's different franchises, but they are all like centrally controlled.
Like talk about KFC, Pizza Hut.
Yes. Yeah, where one is Sea Org, one is fucking the Guardians, and the other's just a regular old Church of Scientology.
Yeah.
He starts giving a bunch of lectures, and it doesn't have the same initial success as Dianetics did. But eventually he has some more children. He gets a degree from an unaccredited degree mill, so he gives himself a doctorate, because why not at that point? And starts calling himself Dr. Hubbard. And he sets up a chain of spiritual guidance centers that would charge customers $500 for 24 hours of auditing. And this is when Scientology first starts turning into a religion, more or less. Hubbard incorporates the Church of Scientology, Church of American Science, and the Church of Spiritual Engineering. A few years later, he says to Scientologists, quote, if attacked on some vulnerable point by anyone or anything or any organization, always find or manufacture enough threat against them to cause them to sue for peace. Don't defend, always attack. And so it keeps growing throughout the 50s pretty steadily. Meanwhile, like the medical claims of Scientology keep growing, and he's starting to do even more dubious shit, like attracting polio sufferers by presenting the church as a scientific research foundation investigating polio.
Yeah, he tries to one of his attempts is he creates this speed cocktail, and he says, you got to take this every 2 hours for 24 hours. And it's this absolutely insane, like, huge vitamin supplement mixed with basically speed. The people are just taking a lot, like some people died, I believe, taking this thing. And yeah, it's
just got stronger though, you know.
Yeah.
He has a bunch more kids and he starts buying mansions. He is basically, and people are starting to realize this is a cult. And he's starting to be investigated by the US government, the Australian government. He starts introducing security checks to identify what he called suppressive persons, which were basically people who didn't like Scientology. And so they would ask a bunch of questions at these security checks, including, have you ever practiced homosexuality? And have you had unkind thoughts about L. Ron Hubbard? And then like they escalated to even asking questions about like what Scientologists have done in their past lives, including questions like, have you ever destroyed a culture? Did you come to Earth for evil purposes? And my personal favorite, have you ever zapped anyone? Which is, I hope it came with as little context as it did for me. The FBI described him as a mental case. The FDA took action against Scientology. They were selling pills that they labeled as radiation cures. And so Scientology was banned in the states of Victoria, Western Australia, and South Australia. Hubbard, he was looking for basically like a safe haven for Scientology, almost like, say, Guyana was for the People's Temple, to make a comparison. He ends up traveling to Rhodesia, which is today's Zimbabwe, but at the time was ruled by a violent white minority, and looked to setting up a base there. He even like tried to curry favor with Ian Smith, who was the prime minister, and not a good dude. But even they kicked him out. He started requiring Scientology members to disconnect from like family members he felt were suppressive. And so he introduced a policy of fair game, which was applicable to anyone he decided was an enemy of Scientology, that they, quote, may be deprived of property or injured by any means by any Scientologist without any discipline of the Scientologist. They may be tricked, sued, or lied to, or destroyed. This is when they open the Guardian's office, which intersects with our previous episode on Operation Snow White, which we've gotten into. This is when he creates the Sea Org, which is the point where he just starts floating around the world on a bunch of yachts.
Yeah, he just kind of spends several years going from port to port, often getting kicked out by local governments because he's doing shady shit.
He's got a game on all the locals.
Yeah. He's got a bunch of people on these boats. He's got their passports locked up in vaults. He sometimes sends them on expeditions to find gold he buried in past lives. And then he starts at a certain point, like there's a 3-year period where they never stay anywhere more than 6 weeks because he's so paranoid about all the governments coming to get them. And at a certain point, he just starts throwing people overboard regularly, which is his favorite punishment. And he seems to get a lot of joy out of just throwing even middle-aged and elderly people overboard as a form of punishment.
Truly, like a wild man.
And he even has a little legion of little girls who are his messengers.
Yeah, that is, there's a lot that is. I couldn't find anything that confirmed like my worst fears about that, but
There's even, I've listened to like a few things on him, and one of the things that is astounding is there is no evidence that he ever was actually like a sexual assaultist or a pedophile or a rapist. Like there is no evidence of that about him. He's obviously a person who did a lot of horrible things, but that is not verified.
So it's at this point, while they're floating around, that he starts releasing the OT levels, which, as you spend more and more money in Scientology, you basically attain a higher level and get access to all these secrets. For example, OT3, which is called the Wall of Fire, which is about a disaster that occurred, quote, on this planet and on the other 75 planets which formed this confederacy 75 million years ago. That's when Scientologists would learn about galactic leader Xenu, and how he had shipped billions of people to Earth and blown them up with hydrogen bombs. And then their traumatized spirits were stuck together at implant stations and brainwashed with false memories, and eventually became contained within human beings. Hubbard said that when he discovered OT3, it took a major physical toll on him, that he had broken a knee, an arm, and his back during the course of his research. He then unveiled levels 4 through 6, which had to have fucked him up. It's around this time that a bunch of like actual like criminal and civil cases are starting to pile up against him in like France, the US. He left the Sea Org fleet and was living undercover in Queens. He later told Scientologists, not that he was in hiding, but, quote, that he was conducting a sociological study in and around New York City. His health's really starting to decline. He's a chain smoker. He was in a motorcycle accident. He had a heart attack. There was some suspicion also, and I don't know how this arose, but in some European countries, people began to suspect that Scientology was a CIA operation, which led to a riot in Portugal. And like his yacht, the Apollo, was banned from docking there. And the band, made up of Sea Org members called the Apollo Stars, was banned from performing. Scientology tries to take over the town of Clearwater, Florida, to establish a permanent land base. They're sort of discovered early and run out of town. That I am desperately trying to condense this because we are so far into this fucking episode. And so there's the Operation Snow White case, Operation Freakout, which we talked about in that episode. It's around this time that he writes Battlefield Earth, when he's living in an RV. He also releases a few music albums, one called Space Jazz, which I gotta fucking hear. I have to hear Space Jazz.
You already know what it is.
Is it a better name for Space Jazz than George Lucas's submission of Jizz?
It absolutely is. It's one of the only things that L. Ron Hubbard got right, was not calling it jizz music like George Lucas. Hubbard's pretty absent at this time, and there's a sort of semi-coup within Scientology, where a bunch of Sea Org members, led by a man named David Miscavige, take over the church in his absence. And Mary Sue Hubbard is like made to resign her position, but their daughter Suzette is made to become Miscavige's personal maid. Miscavige also, we won't really get into because this is an L. Ron Hubbard focused episode. Miscavige is a piece of shit himself. His wife has been missing for decades. No one knows where she is. It's presumed that he did murder her, or he is it's not out of the realm of possibility of Scientology that he is keeping her like imprisoned. Hubbard spends the last couple of years of his life living in a motorhome, in basically deep hiding, and quote, writing and researching, still trying to manage Church of Scientology in what capacity he can. He receives a huge amount of money even at this point. Up through 1982, he had raked in at least $200 million through Scientology. Anyway, January 1986, he suffers a stroke and dies a week later. His body was cremated and ashes were scattered at sea. And Scientology leaders announced that his body had become, quote, an impediment to his work, and that he had decided to drop his body to continue his research on another planet, quote, having learned to do it without a body. There's so much more, but I'm just going to stop there. My throat hurts. I'm going to stop there. That is a crumb of the actual history of L. Ron Hubbard.
Wild.
Yeah,
wild.
crazy.
Yeah, I'm sorry that took so long, Steve, because I know you. Oh, where's Steve going?
I gotta go. I gotta get going. Thanks for having me. This has been great. I'll see you guys later.
Oh, okay.
Okay. We have another caller though. That's interesting.
Oh, hello.
Hello. It's me, L. Ron Hubbard.
Oh, so this is what you sound like, because I was wondering that earlier.
This is always how I've sounded. Without a body.
So I'm guessing there were no vocals on Space Jazz, then is what I'm guessing.
Nope, it was all acoustic guitar.
Oh, really? That's not very jazzy, I gotta say.
No,
it's also not very spacey.
This is truly a first. Elron, Brian just gave an account of your life, but maybe you disagree with some of it or want to fill in some gaps.
Yes, I was listening. Yes. Most of what you said is bullshit. You lied a lot. You know nothing about me. I've never been to Portland.
That's the first thing you want to clear up.
I've been listen, I grew up on the moon.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I mean, I have a few things that you said about yourself if you want to comment on some of these.
Yeah, I would love to get your take on some of these things.
Yes, what are they?
So you said that you became a blood brother of the Blackfoot tribe when you were 6 years old because you just lived with.
I also said everybody masturbates. How do you think it happens?
You become a blood brother and it's a masturbation ritual.
So it's not blood, really, but it's jizz.
Oh no, we would all slice our dicks open and then masturbate.
Oh no.
Okay. I mean, the actual Blackfoot tribe says there is no blood brother ritual at all in their tribe. That's their stance.
Also in New England, that move is called the lobster roll.
Yes, I've been to New England. I haven't been much better chowder there.
Yeah, but okay. Do you want to comment on what the Blackfoot Nation says about there being no blood brother ritual?
Yes, I might have confused them because I'm also a racist.
That would explain that. Yeah, that's
an interesting confession.
I looked down and their feet looked black, so they were the Blackfoot tribe to me.
You said your grandfather taught you the lumberjack fighting style, which you used to protect kids in elementary school, even though your grandfather was not a lumberjack.
No, but it's still more than most modern cops will do.
I have to give you that. You're right.
I gotta agree with L. Ron Hubbard on that one.
Yeah.
What is the lumberjack fighting style?
It's when you crouch your knees and also carry an axe in both hands.
Okay, so it's not really a martial art so much as like assault with a deadly weapon.
2 deadly weapons.
Oh yeah, you're dual wielding.
That's right.
You said that you spent many years training with the mystics of Kubla Khan, that you lived with bandits, that you traveled South America and looked at the, quote, barbaric tribes there. In fact, one person who went to one of your seminars when you were about 30 years old added up all the time you said you spent in different countries and doing different things and noted that it came to about 84 years.
Yes, I mean, but what is time other than a man-made construct? I have been to Jupiter. Have you? You know nothing.
How
Well, maybe I'll
Jupiter?
if I take your seminar, maybe I'll find out if I went to Jupiter.
If you take my second seminar, but you can't take the second until you get through the first.
Yep, that makes sense.
Okay, yeah. I mean that does follow. That is a logical path.
I have 8,042 seminars.
Oh no.
There are
That's
only about 2,000 TED Talks. Who do you think is more smart here?
I mean, I have seen several TED Talks, and it's kind of a toss-up.
A few other things that were interesting to me. You said you found gold on your property one time.
Have you ever, let me ask you, have you ever been to the Caribbean?
I actually haven't. No, I haven't.
I lost a toe there.
That's cool.
Is that cool?
It was gout. It was very cool.
Oh, okay. Gap.
Hey, did you step on a pop top? That's how Jimmy Buffett did it.
No, but I did smoke a bowl with him one time.
Oh, that's fun.
I mean, I gotta say, compared to the moon and Jupiter, these are like a little more down to earth. I can relate to the L. Ron Hubbard.
I dumbed the planets down so you. You've never heard of Samathu. You all think I'm crazy.
You
You're
claimed
talking to a dead man.
You claimed you wrote many of the great screenplays of the 30s and 40s. There is no source for that. You claimed that in Alaska, when your boat broke down, you spent several months fighting bears and German spies.
That was lumberjack style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And German spy bears.
You claimed you were the first person injured in the Far East in World War II, that you have numerous medals for on live duty injury, that you went and served and fought in 5 countries.
Yes, I'm a hero.
You claimed you were literally machined gun in the back by the Japanese and survived.
Yeah, they they were training. They were not using the strongest bullets.
Oh, okay. They mixed up the bullets.
Well,
They were
and
actually
you see,
mini marshmallows.
Also, I was protected because gravity said not today and pulled the bullets down at the last second. Stronger bullets would have beat gravity.
Wow. You escaped a POW camp and on a life raft traveled 2,000 miles back home by yourself.
It was made of somebody's skin.
Oh, so it was an inflatable.
It was not inflatable. I used bones as sails to help hold up the skin.
Excellent. That's really great.
I've driven corpses through lava fields.
I want all this on a Tinder profile.
And just something I want to look at. Excalibur, we never got to read it. I'm really sad about that. Some of the things that you said were in there. Trigger warning for this first one, for sexual assault. Quote, it would teach you how to rape women without their knowing it. And then communicate suicide messages to your enemies as they sleep. Sell the Arosoka Parkway to the mayor for cash. And evolve the best way of protecting or destroying communism, whichever you prefer.
Oh, so it's a neutral. It's a neutral.
And you were also out. Your jury was out on, quote, whether to destroy the Catholic Church or merely start a new one.
Yes, believe it or not, all of these things you said can be done through the magic of pills.
Oh.
It's all pills.
I just got to pause the recording. I gotta find this communist pill right now because things are bad.
You can either protect or destroy it.
You'll find it soon enough. Come take 38 of my seminars and I'll give you the communist pill.
All right, I'll Venmo you.
Yeah, you helped create the Air Force, possibly. You died on the operating table and visited heaven at least 6 or 7 times.
Oh, like that kid who wrote that fucking book.
Uh-huh.
I did it 8 times during this podcast alone.
Oh yeah.
I can go back and forth in an instant.
Yeah, and when your daughter
Hubbard, for Christ's sake.
When your daughter was in Cuba, some say because you kidnapped her and took her there, you yourself were kidnapped by a super secret Cuban training facility that almost killed you. And that's the real reason all that happened.
Yes, I recently learned it was actually the U.S. government the whole time.
Yeah, that tracks, actually.
What a life you've led. And then obviously that's before you discovered all your past lives that date back millions of years.
Oh, yes.
You have a favorite past life?
Oh, my favorite? That's hard to say. I'll tell you this. Cleopatra was kind of a bitch. I'm L. Ron Hubbard. I remember.
Well, I just thought I'd go through some of the classics I found while I was looking around at some of your life, and a lot of interesting stuff in there.
Yes. One time, George Washington and I spent the night together.
Oh.
And then we got brunch, and then we had sex.
Oh, so there was no sex during the night spent together, and then after the brunch, the sex happened.
Yes, that's correct.
Because there's nothing better than having sex with George Washington with a tummy full of hash browns. That's our new merch, by the way.
We didn't have hash browns back then. We had to eat horse.
Oh, okay.
Horses.
I've always heard that about George Washington.
You seem to have not very many questions for me.
I just wanted your comments on a few of those things I read, and just Any others? Any other notable moments in your lives? You seem to have fought a lot of spies, a lot of military activity, some paranormal stuff. You did a lot of magic.
Yes, one time I got drunk with an alien and Hitler.
Oh.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh no.
It was fine. I blacked out and I traveled to a planet you'll never learn about unless you take 9,568 of my seminars.
How many seminars are there in total?
Well, I've written 4 more during this interview. I believe 10,053. I forgot how many seminars I have.
There's 1 or 2 that probably you don't really need.
No, but I'm still learning how to update my books for Amazon, for tablet.
And some of the seminars are like, homemade like glass cleaning and like homemade ice cream, things like that are not like
how to make sourdough bread.
Yeah. One of my seminars is about how to use your body and mind and put it into the My Pillow guy and control him for a little bit.
Who hasn't dreamed of that?
One of them is it one of them just a video walkthrough for Sonic 2?
No, it's just me commentating on it.
Oh, okay. It's just a let's play.
It's a very fine piece of Jim Carrey is very underrated.
Oh, it's the movie. Okay, yeah.
You do know that movie is based on a video game, right?
He's no Tom Cruise, but he's crazy.
Oh yeah, who's your favorite celebrity Scientologist?
Oh, TC.
JT.
Easy.
Also Oprah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're starting to get into slander territory.
Tucker Carlson's son.
Yeah, I'm fine with that one. There's a Will Smith. I don't know. Is Will Smith still a Scientologist? What's the
He had some connection.
there?
It's unclear his current relationship to Scientology.
Elron, could you comment on that?
No, I can't. Everybody keeps talking about him slapping people, and I'm like, you haven't paid your dues in months, Will Smith.
Yeah. You have more basic concerns about Will Smith.
Yes, his money. Where's my money?
That's true. I mean, I saw that number 200 million from Scientology by 1982. How much have you made at this point? Because it's now 2022. I gotta think that's just skyrocketed.
Granted, it does seem hard to claim money when you're officially dead.
Oh, but I can use it in the afterlife. Don't you worry. Listen, there's 72 versions of heaven, and each one of them costs money to get into.
Wow,
Oh, no.
very capitalist.
Every single one, yes, it doesn't end when you die.
Well, I guess they chose destroying communism instead of protecting it, huh?
Well, there's one secret heaven. If you take 9,584 of my seminars, I'll teach you about the one secret heaven that isn't capitalist.
Oh,
Cool. I mean,
and all you have to do to get there is spend a lot of money
a
on
lot of
seminars.
money.
It is satanic, just so you know.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I don't. Zach, do you have any more questions for L. Ron Hubbard? I don't know how we're going to get his spirit back to the celestial plane.
Oh, I
assume
can
he can
travel
just-
in and out
yeah.
pretty freely.
Is there? So there's not like a sex magic ritual.
Oh, I mean, that's how Harry Potter was created.
Oh.
But outside of that, not really.
I guess I do actually. That was what would be going through your mind when you would be sort of searching the astral plane and Jack Parsons would be masturbating in a circle.
The question they are trying to ask is, have you ever zapped anyone?
Oh, is that what that is?
That is exactly what it is. Have you ever zapped anyone? And that's what that means.
I mean, it sounds like a Nickelodeon 1990s kind of trick you'd play on somebody, but apparently it's watching somebody masturbate while you're trying to scan
Much
the
more
astral plane.
perverted, yes, much more perverted.
The worst episode of all that.
You can't do that on television, actually.
You can on the Scientology channel.
There is a Scientology channel, right? I'm not.
Yes, and you can't afford it.
That is actually true. Oh well, Elron, thank you so much for joining us and taking.
Yes, this has been but a blink in time. You won't remember this when you get to heaven, but I always will. That's why I'm more powerful than you.
Oh, he's zapping us now. Oh no. Oh.
Yeah, we can't be sapped. This is getting dangerous.
This is a video podcast now. I should have thought of that.
Give me your souls.
Oh, yeah, I can Venmo you that too, I guess, with the money for the seminars.
Yeah, would you accept money instead of my soul?
Sure.
Perfect.
Is it in the form of a cashier's check?
I guess it could be.
Yes. Please send it to me now.
Oh man. Well, listeners, I don't know if the ghost of L. Ron Hubbard is sticking around, or if Steve is back from wherever he went. But before we move
Steve
on,
is dead. Steve never truly lived.
we always said that about him. Steve did want me to mention that he hosts Rotating Tap, which is a great series of comedy shows. Elrod, do you know anything about Rotating Tap?
Yes, it's good for you dumb mortals. You'll never experience immunity like I will. Enjoy your stupid stand-up shows at breweries. I'll live forever.
Do you know when those happen, Elrod?
All of them. It rotates nights. There's a website.
Perfect. Zach, you co-host the Movie Trap podcast.
Yeah, it's a movie podcast where we pick a theme and we each pick a movie in that theme, and then we vote on who picked the best movie, and then that person picks the next movie. Yeah, so if you like this, you can listen to that.
Top Gun Maverick. Tom Cruise needs more money.
We haven't done Top Gun Maverick yet. We did do The Mummy, starring Tom Cruise.
Good.
What about Battlefield Earth? Have you done?
We have not done Battlefield Earth.
Well, listen to the Movie Trap, everyone. As for me, by the time this comes out, we should have more information on it. But I will be organizing this is a very different thing. Be organizing a bake sale to raise money for abortion funds. So look for more details on that by the time this is out. Or just DM me on the Revisionist Instagram. So, which you can also reach us there now, as our still not sure if Elon Musk is taking over Twitter. Elon Musk feels like a Scientologist. He is not, as far as I know.
If he knows of yet.
So Instagram is the only way you can reach us right now. Except for our website, revisionistpodcast.com. Just click on the contact form and ask us a question. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you think is in OT level 6, 7, 8, or 9. And review this podcast on your podcast service of choice. Written reviews are especially helpful. And again, tell us all the things that you were hiding because you wanted to stay out of the Navy. Just give us 5 stars and do that. But that brings us to the judgment phase of this episode, which falls to Zach this time.
I don't know. I thought L. Ron Hubbard was a really charming dude. He's got a lot of fun stories. I think maybe I'll vote for him.
Go. Thank you.
Head down to my Scientology center tomorrow.
Yes, you get one free seminar just for plugging me. Thank you.
I'll tell him L. Ron sent me.
I wonder if they get that ever. Like if anyone's ever like, hey, L. Ron sent me. Is that like when you tip at Cold Stone, they have to do like a song and dance?
Yeah, is that like a coupon code? Can you give us a coupon code to plug in our podcast?
Yeah,
for Scientology.
Yes. Dianetics 2022.
All right.
Okay, listeners, enter Dianetics. All caps.
You enter that into your local science when you go to your local auditing session, and you actually pay 10% more, which gets you more thetans out of your body.
Yeah, it gives you more Scientology juice.
That's right. And if you order now, I'll give you 2 free seminars. For the price of 1. Really good seminar. So it's an extra expensive seminar, but then you get 2 more for free. For now.
It's a bit of a confusing deal, but it sounds good. All right. Yeah, I guess that does it for this for this week. Thanks for Steve, who left, for joining us.
Apparently died.
He said goodbye. His last words were goodbye and thank you for having me.
Oh, that's nice.
He said that to me before I choked him with one finger.
Oh, so
God.
It was murder. You murdered.
I guess a god can't murder a man. When a god murders a man, it's just death.
Yeah, man.
I'm spiteful.
Yeah. Well, thanks to Elrod for coming by. Real special get. Yeah, I guess that does it. Remember to vote, guys. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Have a good time.
Voting gets you nowhere in the afterworld.
I mean, we're sort of in the same boat right now. July 9th, 1763. The Mozart family begins a grand tour of Europe, which would bring fame to their son, Wolfgang Amadeus, but do nothing for his siblings Germain, Tito, and Latoya. July 9th, 1962. Starfish Prime tests the effects of nuclear tests at orbital altitudes, while chocolate starfish and the hot dog flavored water test the effects of Fred Durst on the world's oceans. I'll do two more. July 9th, 1937. The silent film archives of Fox Studios are destroyed in a fire, robbing future generations of such movies as Trouble with the Irish, The Polio Follies, and Journey to the Everlasting Polar Ice Caps. July 9th, 1850. President Zachary Taylor dies after eating raw fruit and iced milk like a punk.
All right. July 9th, 1540. King Henry VIII annuls his marriage to his fourth wife, Anne of Cleves, whose name must have made it really tempting to go with the old trusty beheading route. July 9th, 1868, the 14th Amendment is ratified, guaranteeing African Americans full citizenship, which they still technically have for probably a few more months. July 9th, 1937, the silent film archives of the Fox Film Corporation are destroyed in a fire. Lost was the original versions of the Police Academy movies, which, to be fair, didn't work so well when the sound effects guy had dialogue cards, but to be even fairer, still didn't work with sound.